I once fell in love with a mannequin, with a voice of pure gold to go with her plastic skin. So when she told me she loved me, I dove right in, chose to live in her world and try to fit in. At first, things were perfect. She lit up my life. We danced through the day, make love through the night. Rarely did we argue, and if we ever did fight, she'd just give me a plastic smile, tell me things are all right. And I believed her. You'd understand if you'd seen her. This manicured mannequin had spent her life practicing manufacturing smiles no matter what might be happening. And so while it wasn't entirely real, it wasn't entirely fake. To hide how you feel was just the way she was raised. By plastic parents who wanted a plastic daughter, who never disobeyed her mother and never questioned her father, got good grades in plastic school, behaved in plastic church, never complained about the pain even when it really hurt. And so after years, those tears stopped flowing as those plastic walls were put in place. She built a beautiful plastic life to match this plastic smile on her plastic face. She'd give plastic waves to plastic friends, have plastic parties to celebrate plastic wins. She bought a plastic house with a plastic fence. She kept others out until she let me in. And I loved her as deep as I could. Kept telling her I saw her the way I wished that she would. I see you, I said. I see you, I see your soul, and I won't leave you, I said, unless you ask me to go. You don't need your protection anymore. You don't need your plastic parts, because I'm a man who understands that even plastic mannequins have very real hearts. And that's when she finally saw me. Felt safety, a safe space to simply be. And so that night while we were drifting to sleep, she nuzzled real close, gave me a kiss on the cheek, whispered in my ear so soft and so sweet, I don't want to be plastic anymore. Often I'm talking and find myself watching out of my body like I'm caught in a box and I can't get out. And I don't know how to break free. Because I was taught I was rotten, thought I'd be forgotten unless I bought into the idea of who I needed to be. So I put on the plastic nails and the plastic hair and the plastic eyelashes to match the makeup I wear, and plastic attention was better than when nobody noticed me there, and plastic love was better than thinking nobody cared. But there's something about the way you look at me that makes me feel like I actually want to be seen, but I'm afraid of what that actually might mean. I've been plastic so long, I don't know the real me. And she started to cry. And they were not plastic tears. And she started to share, and they were not plastic fears. So I held her for days, for weeks, and for months as she started to open all the parts that were once closed, locked, thrown away the key, thought she couldn't be hurt in places she couldn't be seen, but that's just a lie they tell you when they sell you a mannequin's dream. A whimsical, nonsensical belief that you're invincible if you pretend the skin you're in is magically impenetrable. But that's just a lie they tell you when they sell you a mannequin's dream. Because feeling numb is not the same thing as feeling nothing. And I knew when I first saw her, I saw something special, something real. She had lived the life of a mannequin, but she wanted to feel. And so that's exactly what we did. Poured love into all the places we'd previously hid. I saw her happy, I saw her sad, she saw me scared, she saw me mad, and eventually I saw a mom and she saw a dad so proud to be parents of this little family we had. Because they were not plastic kids. And they were not raised in a plastic home. They were celebrated and praised till they were grown with kids of their own. And if there's a moral to this story, it's that there's no such thing as plastic love. When you open your heart to someone, it's always the real stuff. And real love can get through fake skin and turn plastic beginnings into fairy tale ends. That's what I learned from the time when I once fell in love with a mannequin. This poem, A Mannequin's Dream, behind the poetry, what was going on that led to that piece? It was really interesting because if you can't tell, that piece emerged from a breakup. I was in a relationship with someone who had a bit of a public profile, and this public profile was not fully authentic. This public profile was one where there were things that she couldn't say. There were things that she couldn't reveal. There were aspects of how she felt she needed to behave in order to appease her audience. And you can imagine what kind of impact or influence or conflict might arise with someone like me coming into that world as someone who absolutely believes authenticity is everything. It is an act of self-love. Authenticity is the way in which we say, hey, who I actually am, all of me, is worthy of being seen. I'm not going to hide parts of me because I'm afraid of how you'll react. That was a huge part of my self-love journey. And so coming into this situation where I even had to be careful about what I was saying on my own social media because of how it might impact her brand and different things, it was incredibly challenging. And one of the biggest challenges was that her family actually hated me and had never actually spoken to me. And so I would be in a situation where I would be in a room knowing that she was on the phone across the room with her family, knowing that they would say things about how bad I was for her brand, how much fear they had of the impact I was going to have on her, et cetera. And as someone who's worked really hard to be the man that I am and feel proud of who I be in the world, that was incredibly challenging and incredibly difficult. And when the relationship ended, there was this period of time where I was very upset. And one of the reasons why I was so upset was because the way that even the breakup was announced to the world was done through an intentional PR move, and it felt very inauthentic and very businessy. And I started to wonder, wait, I'm feeling upset because I think she's being fake, right? I think she's being fake on social media a lot of the time. I think that she's being fake with how it's being presented. That's my opinion, but maybe I was the one who was getting the fake. Maybe that's real. And we had this bubble of time together where she loved pretending to be a certain way with me. And that started to get me thinking, what if I was always dating a mannequin? What if I was I only got to see a shell? What if I never got to know the real person? And my initial feelings around that were anger. I felt angry about it. And within 1 or 2 weeks of the breakup, I started this poem. I once fell in love with a mannequin, and it came from a place of anger. And I wrote all the way up until this manicured mannequin had spent her life practicing manufacturing smiles no matter what might be happening. This whole beginning of this piece from a place of anger, of she's fake, she's always been fake, right? And then I got to a point in my own personal healing journey where I thought, I can't write this. There's something that doesn't feel right about creating this piece of poetry from anger about how fake this person is who I loved deeply. So I stopped. Writing it. I let it be just an idea that never took shape or form. And I went into my healing process in a really deep way. And I disappeared into the woods in a cabin. I brought all of my journals I've kept since 2013 and started reading them, which gave me so much insight into the patterns that I was seeing. I realized I was writing the same shit back in 2009 that I was writing in 2019. Was I even growing at all? And it gave me such a different insight into the healing process and the process of evolution that we go through. And I began also doing my work. This is something that's really important because I think people go through breakups and they can very easily blame someone else. They can project onto them like this is their fault or whatever, and just go back to their life, try and move on. But far fewer people take an intentional approach of going into a breakup and saying, what can I learn from this in order for me to be more aligned with the relationship that I actually desire to have in the future? How can I become more of who I desire to be? Because this breakup is not one sided. I played a part in this. There was something that I did or how I behaved that in retrospect is probably something I want to shift and change. And so I went into my work, and every day I started reconnecting to parts of myself that had been offline or never actually even online. And I started to do intentional practices. I spent a lot of time in nature. And so as I did this, I cried, I journaled, I held ceremony for myself. I got back into my body. I danced. I did cold plunges in the frozen lake. I did all this work. And by the way, just as a side note, this is all the stuff that I put into my breakup course. It's called The Art of Breaking Up. It's literally a 10-week course that I've made to help people move through this process. Because as you can hear, that I've done this so intentionally after several intense breakups. And so if you're going through that, I just want to mention that it's available for you for support, because I went through this process for myself. And one day I woke up and was sobbing in the morning. I was absolutely beside myself with so much hurt in my heart, but it wasn't for me. The hurt that I was feeling was actually for her, because I'd woken up in this space of compassion for just how hard it must be to not feel like you can be authentic, to have a relationship with your parents where they can say mean things to you and feel like you can't speak up, to feel trapped by this outward persona that controls what you can say, what you can't say, um, and what it would be like to grow up in that environment and be willing to accept that. And that led me into a deep space of compassion and pain and feeling her so deeply. And after probably an hour of crying about that, part of that includes, by the way, some guilt and feeling guilty for being angry instead of being in a place of compassion. So there was my own process too, but really dropping into feeling her. I remembered this poem. And you can see the shift where I picked it back up again. So after the line, this manicured mannequin had spent her life practicing manufacturing smiles no matter what might be happening. So while it wasn't entirely real, it wasn't entirely fake. To hide how you feel was just the way she was raised. That's the shift. The permission slip of it wasn't entirely fake. And where did that come from? And that led me to be able to complete the vast majority of the poem, all the way to the point where I said she had lived the life of a mannequin, but she wanted to feel. Right? Once we get all the way through that poem, all this compassion, looking at the life she led and the journey she'd been on, writing this piece, and it really flowed out of me, but it got stuck there. She'd lived the life of a mannequin, but she wanted to feel. And I didn't know how to end it. And I did not know how to end it. And I stayed in this cabin. I continued to do my work and I continued to do my process, and I just let it be. And then at a certain point in the healing journey, I actually let it go. Like I wanted to let it go. I realized, okay, there's this moment in a breakup where I think that initially in the breakup, you can go through all of these emotions and different chapters, but there is a point where you say, this is officially done. I'm never going back. The door is closed. And you know it, you feel it. And oftentimes you've been saying it, but there's a moment when it actually happens. And this moment I could feel approaching. I was right there, and I said, it's time to close the door. And I thought to myself, what am I still holding on to? And I realized I was holding on to this vision of what could be, this vision of children and all of these things. And I thought, it's time to immortalize that vision. It's time to let that vision live somewhere else. And it gets to live in this poem. And so from that part of the poem where I say she had lived the life of a mannequin, but she wanted to feel. And so that's exactly what we did. Poured love into all the places we'd previously hid. I saw her happy. I saw her sad. She saw me scared. She saw me mad. And eventually I saw a mom and she saw a dad, so proud to be parents of this little family we had. that was the shift where I thought to myself, if I can just express that part of me, I feel as if I can actually let it go, because it no longer feels as if I'm just letting it go into the ether where it never exists and I'm fully just giving up on it. It actually gets immortalized into art. That's the power of art, is I got to express it in a place where I think that version, that timeline, that little lifetime right there, that vision, it lives on. It lives on in this poem. It now lives on even in this podcast. And so there's a part of me that was able to let it go once I felt like I gave it a safe home, as if there's a part of my heart that just wanted to know that it would be okay, like releasing a little animal out to the sea. And so this poem for me is about compassion. The creative path that I took was one where I had to find my way to compassion, like through anger into compassion for her, and then into compassion for myself, for the part of me that still wanted to believe in this fairy tale ending. And so when I think of this piece, that's what comes to mind for me. And my hope is that I've been able to convey the compassion that we can have for people who have hurt us, the compassion that we can have for people that we don't really understand, that we might judge at first, the judgment of you're a mannequin, but then coming into, wow, what's really underneath that is a desire to be seen and a fear of being rejected. And to find our space for that level of compassion for anyone and everyone that we don't agree with, that we don't resonate with, that we don't see eye to eye with, the people that we judge the most, can we have that openness and that willingness to meet them in compassion? That's what this poem's all about. And it is the result of me continuing to walk the creative path. So thank you for taking that journey with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you are interested in building a life that you love through the 3 pillars of relationship, business, and creativity, then I encourage you to continue checking out more of my content, including this video, which I really think that you will like. Would you believe me if I told you that you can make $1 million as a coach with a very small social media following? I know that this is possible because I did it. I was paid $1 million for a 1-year one-on-one coaching contract, and I had less than 5,000 Instagram followers. My name is Adam Roa. I have been a personal development, quote unquote, life coach since 2013. And within 18 months of launching my personal coaching business, I was earning a consistent 6 figures, and that ballooned to 7 figures and beyond, all because I understand that you need 3 things in order to build a successful, and by successful, I mean a lucrative, revenue generating coaching business